Our publisher, Bob Cox, was in Toronto 2 years ago for the Canadian Newspaper Association convention, and someone from the Czechoslovakia News Café did a presentation. And Czechoslovakia was doing, essentially it was a coffee house where journalists would work. So they'd give access to one of their journalists. And I thought, that's interesting. And so Bob and I talked a little more about it, and I said, is this something you'd want to pursue here? And he said, well, the idea is actually kind of interesting, but with anything new we do, we have to make a business plan, a business case for it, for our board of directors to actually invest in. So I said, okay. And I spent the next month building a business plan. And not only looking at the numbers, but what are the objectives of this? Why would we open this? What do we hope to achieve? How can we measure success? And I built those parameters and gave it back to Bob, and he said, this is actually pretty good. So he was the bulldog who pushed this through the ownership. This is an ownership that, we're, like all news organizations, essentially are seeing revenues declining and expenses either increasing or maintaining. So for them to consider a new expenditure, they had to see a reason for it. And he did a tremendous job in selling the ownership that this is a good idea. These objectives are important to us as a news organization. And so really hats off to him both for the initial idea and then being the champion of the project. That was very key. The objectives from my perspective were a return to transparency, to make ourselves accessible as a news brand, to make ourselves interesting to those under 55. That was very important because, frankly, nobody under 34 reads a print newspaper, period. Why would they care? It's their parents' thing, right? So that was important. Create a space where they'd be comfortable, they'd want to go, and we've really found that. We've found 20-year-olds with piercings mixed with gray hairs who go to the Folk Fest, mixed together, sit at the same table and eat lunch together. So we wanted to create a social hub, a meeting place. So not only are you there for lunch, you're also there to hear a politician speak about the issue of the day. We just had the immigration minister stop in at the cafe specifically to address immigration issues that came out of the budget. Our role really is to provide events and marketing. So we'll leverage that space that we've co-created to host concerts, town halls, these kind of live events that we can live stream. So now we have a performance venue and an event venue so that we can have these kinds of events. And obviously this is a symbiotic relationship with the restaurateur because if he's got people, they're going to eat and drink. So it works for him. We have a built-in marketing network. Obviously our newspaper itself is a marketing tool. So we can use that to produce ads for events at the restaurant and for the restaurant itself. So this gives him as a restaurateur a huge advantage over any other restaurant startup. They don't have that relationship. So it's really powerful for him and for us, obviously, because we have a public downtown venue that happens to have tremendous food. We have the journalists that are on staff primarily are from our digital team. So our digital studio is there. And so we have 2 multimedia editors. We have an online editor that works there 3 days a week. She works the other 2 days at the office, so she wants to stay involved as a manager in what's happening there. We also have a social media reporter that works out of there. So those are kind of the permanent staff, but then we also rotate other staff in. And permanent staff all have placards with their names and titles as well as their Twitter handle. So it's a little more inviting for the average person who may be intimidated. Oh, there's that person I know. And no, they're just sitting there working, and if the sign's up, come talk to us. And we found we've not only have we reached out into the community and really provided that comfort zone for them to interact with us, we've gotten a lot of story ideas. So people will actually say, hey, did you hear about? Which they're there, you're there, and there's that opportunity we wouldn't have had otherwise because we're in their space. Well, I think initially there was trepidation. There was fear that they couldn't get any work done. There'd be a parade of people asking them inane questions. And obviously there's a percentage of that. There's a percentage of that, of those people who would call them with that same information. So it really doesn't change. But for the most part, they're really energized. Gee, I wish I had gotten out of the office sooner and interact with people again. And there's an energized nature of being in that space because there's so much energy in there to begin with. The office in the industrial park, there's hardly any windows. There's no pass-by traffic, obviously. Whereas here, it's all windows. There's people always walking by from the school nearby, working nearby. There's a lot of design shops around, so there's a lot of young people. There's just energy built into it. So you just want to be a part of that. And so it's been a fairly quick transition of people thinking initially, I'm a little scared about being in the public, to, wow, there's so much payoff to this. So that's been pleasing. I think it's the excuse that some have been looking for to get back in the public eye and reconnect with people. And like with anything, I think you need those catalysts who say, yeah, I'm going to try that. And they're the first ones to do it. One of our columnists, who is kind of a love or hate kind of guy, said, "Oh, I'm going to set up shop there for the week and let people approach me." And he was tremendous about it. And he wrote a column about it, naturally, talked about the 20-year-old with the piercing sitting next to the 70-year-old with the gray hair, and saying it has some sort of intangible appeal to people, that it's just there's something happening and they want to be a part of it. I think it's accidentally fulfilled that as a convergence tool. My original priority was to make ourselves transparent as a company again, to connect with people to our brand who otherwise thought of us as, my dad's brand. And that was so important to me. I mean, everyone on mobile is our biggest potential customer in terms of consumer content and the related messaging, whether it's advertising or something else around it. And for us to let them go by is the biggest mistake we could make. So I think it is a convergence tool because those people will come to see us, and we're sending our content, our live streams, our live chats onto mobile-friendly streams. So it is accessible that way. So it's definitely it's a conduit, I think, to convergence. Anyone considering this, partner with a well-known restaurateur looking for a project, looking for a differentiation strategy, and make sure it's in an area that supports night traffic. That's really important.